did last night. I agree with it. What's interesting is they said Jimmy Butler was going to alleviate that. It maybe not yet because the burden Steph carried all year. Here's the thing. They talk about this play-in. Here's why it's so important. You're not just talking about the difference between 6 and 7, where now you're 7, you will go host that 7-8 game. They could be 8. The Clippers are 1 game behind them right now. So if you fall to the 8 spot, you got to go on the road for that game. Your season could you have another chance then in the 9-10, but if you're in that spot, you're playing the Thunder in the first round. That is why it is so important to hold on to the 6, and that's why last night was a golden opportunity with Minnesota losing to the Pacers, and you playing the Nuggets that shorthanded and you don't get the win. That's a lost opportunity.
And Steph came into the game questionable, so you to know that he wasn't 100%, that there was a calculation made, okay, we're going to go for the jugular in this game where the Nuggets are shorthanded, and it didn't come to fruition. The numbers say that Jimmy Butler has helped a little bit with Steph Curry, but this is a guy he's 37, in constant motion. So how do you balance this pursuit of the play-in, Udonis, but also Steph's health?
Whew. That's a tough one because you do not want to be in a play-in, but what I will say is last night was going to be a tough game for Jimmy regardless. When you talk about Aaron Gordon, when you talk about Russell Westbrook, you're talking about guys that have size, speed, athleticism. Those are the kind of guys that Jimmy struggled with. Smaller guards, he can overpower. Bigger guys, he can usually get around. Those guys that usually have that balance of both, those are teams Jimmy struggled with. Guys that are switchable matchup that can guard him in the post and can guard him on the perimeter. So hopefully that's not a matchup they're going to have, but OKC has wing defenders. They have Caruso. They have Dort. They have these lengthy, long wing defender guys. And then Houston has that as well. So neither one of those teams in the first round is going to play out well for Golden State. So in my opinion, move up as high as you can and get out of there. Move up as high as you can. You can't rest. You can't do both. You have to pick one. Well, you figure it out after that.
But they've got to give him a chance to finish the regular season strong. He might need a rest night tonight. I mean, you can see the mental fatigue in him. Some of those turnovers were incredibly sloppy. The one that I knew, okay, the Nuggets are actually going to win this game is when Steph threw a one-hand, left the underhand lob to I don't know who. It looked like somebody, playing cornhole about 6 beers in.
Hey, I'm pretty good in that.
I was going to say, raise your hand if you have experience.
Like a Look at our uniform.
I'm better 6 beers in.
No, 2 to 5, you're good. Once you get to 6, 7, 8,
now that's the golf course, what you're describing.
Look, 5 or 6, they're good in the seeding. 7 or 8, they're in trouble because you need Steph fresh for the playoffs. And the time to rest for him is when other teams are playing in the play-in. You don't want him having to play those games with the Warriors' season on the line and then turn right back around and deal with Lou Dort or Amin Thompson or whoever it may be.
Jonathan Kuminga is back. Maybe he can alleviate some of that stress offensively off Steph. So they're getting a little bit more healthy. Maybe that can help.
And this is a weird time of year when you talk about strength of schedule. The Warriors are pretty middle of the pack, but last night's game was supposed to be really difficult. No one plays. It's a weird time of year to look at that as some sort of indicator. Minnesota's supposed to have the easiest remaining schedule in the West. They drop one to the... So it's all sort of a little bit, as Stephen A. would say, fluid at this time of year. 30 years ago today, Legler bullies his way inside, but watch the ticker at the bottom of your screen here. He would just rack up the consecutive points here for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, and this was their offense. No Jalen Brunson. He's going to get a lot of touches. So he took over, particularly late first into the second quarter, carried that all the way through the rest of the half, and it's where New York got some separation.
Towns up to 9 consecutive points now. A minute later, same score. Campaign drives it, kicks it to Towns at the top of the key. He drains a 3. He's having his own 12-0 run now, but he wouldn't stop there. The Knicks' next possession, Hart finds Towns by the logo, where he shoots the 31-foot 3. Here's what he had to say about that deep 3.
If I was one step through from the half court, I was shooting it, so I was letting it fly.
He said, that's where I want it, UD.
I mean, it's easy to shoot it when you open. You got to come together and switch up, and those guys in that locker room know that.
To the third quarter here. That sounds a little personal, UD. Hart finds Mikal Bridges, drives to the layup. Bridges game-high 28 points, and Knicks starting to really roll here. Hart drains the 3. Hart had 12 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists, his 8th triple-double this season, tying Wilt Frazier for the most in a season in Knicks history, by the way. Karl Anthony Towns putting the finishing touches on this. He had 23 in the game, and the Knicks get the win here. A lot was made about the Knicks starters' workload, and last night was one way to maybe bridge the gap. All 5 Knicks starters played 32 minutes or less against Miami. It's just the second time this season the Knicks starters all played that little in the same game. So according to ESPN Analytics, the Knicks have a 98.6% chance of being the 3 seed in the East. Legs, what do you believe that would be a successful season for the Knicks, who have the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics in their same conference?
Realistically, you're looking at it this way. They're going to play the Celtics in the second round, assuming they both win their first-round series. Now, look, if the Knicks lose, let's just hypothetically say they play the 6-seed Pistons. They lose to the Pistons in the first round and Jalen Brunson's back. That's disastrous end to the year. Assume they win that series. You're going to play the Celtics in the second round. Now, what's realistic to expect? A long, tough, competitive series in which you lose is as far as this season is going. They're not going to beat the Boston Celtics. And I also think Jalen Brunson, by the way, he's going to come back from this ankle. That doesn't mean he won't be bothered by it to a certain extent, or maybe just a little bit less explosive, a little bit less quick, maybe a little bit less lift on his jump shot. Probably the rest of the postseason, that could slow him down a little bit, making that second-round loss even more likely. But look, if that's a sweep or a 5-game series, that also, to me, is a disastrous end to the year.
I'm not going to even talk about second round. We're going to talk about first round.
Okay.
And first things first, this is championship expectations. You move you bring Cat in, you move Julius Randle, you move DiVincenzo. You make those moves. You sell your soul a little bit, Tibbs, because you're a defensive guy, but you bring in more offense. You do that because you want to win a championship. Now, I like those Thundercats out of Detroit. I'm looking at that matchup, and they're sharpening their swords, and they are waiting for this matchup. They are excited about this matchup. Cade Cunningham, Malik Beasley, those guys are ready for this matchup. Jalen Brunson coming in or not, that ankle's not going to be ready till the summertime. We all know that, so he is not going to be healthy. I'm looking at Detroit, and I'm saying this could be a first-round exit for New York.
You say championship expectations. I'm going to say championship ambitions. Nobody has watched the Knicks and said this looks like a championship team this season. And look, if they get bounced in the first round, if it's a 5-game flop even in the second round, then it is a massive failure. What's a success? I don't know, but the ceiling is a competitive second-round series against the Boston team.
But all of that needs Jalen Brunson to be healthy. And our own Cassidy Hubbarth reported that he's going to be out for another week or so, and he's still in a boot right now, but doing some light shooting. You both touched on this. Well, what can you expect from a player who has that type of usage coming back from an injury like this?
I don't like hearing that. Still in a boot? I mean, you understand once that comes off, first of all, he's going to have stiffness in that ankle the rest of the season. There's just nothing you can do about that. And Jalen Brunson is not a blur, right? He's a guy that uses strength, balance, and IQ, and great shooting touch. He needs every ounce of quickness he has. If you lose even a little bit and you're Jalen Brunson, that makes everything more of a slog offensively, where you're just constantly harassed and you're in traffic all the time. He could be facing that the rest of the way. Look, you go out and get Cat to offset some of that. But I think to UD's point, you're talking about a Detroit Pistons team even in the first round that's going to challenge you defensively. But assuming they were to win that, you're not getting past the Boston Celtics unless Jalen Brunson is absolutely 100%. And even then, I wouldn't pick him to win that series.
I mean, and you got to look at what New York has done, so far offensively. I mean, out of this world. The offensive numbers, Cat can get his buckets against anybody. If you're small, he's going to post you. If you're big, he's going to shoot the 3. So offense is not going to be a problem. I think the Detroit series is going to come down to toughness. And we saw a little bit of that between Tibbs and Josh Hart. So we know the toughness is sprinkled in there. But if at the end of the day, I'm going with Detroit basketball on this one.
This is what you're referring to, this battle
locker room
words.
I want to be in. Put me in this locker room. Put me in this locker room.
Of sentiments between Tibbs and Josh Hart, and we've seen this a couple of times with Josh Hart and Tibbs rather, and a couple of his players here. But their defense has gotten better since Mitchell Robinson has entered the lineup. And some folks are saying, well, why were you playing Karl Anthony Towns so many minutes of a fourth quarter where they were up by so much? Well, it's because I would think Tibb wants to see that double big lineup. Those two had only played 9 minutes together total entering last night. They played 9 minutes together in the fourth quarter alone. So getting a larger sample size there, I would think, is what he's thinking. You mentioned Detroit. Let's bounce around the league a bit, and we'll get there. We had some big stories drop, though, in the last 24 hours. Let's go coast to coast to catch you up. The Sixers, they announced that they're shutting down Paul George for the season. He dealt with knee, groin, finger issues throughout the year. PG, he does turn 35 in March and has 3 more years left on his max deal. UD, do you think that this Philly situation, we have them, is salvageable?
Hell no. That situation is over. It's time to move on. We need to figure out what to do next. You probably can't move Joel Embiid, but I think Paul George still has some value out here. And I also want to see what they do with Quinn Grimes right now. He's playing his butt off right now, averaging 20 a game, has had more 40-point games, and also he's a restricted free agent.
The Mavericks, they've sent Anthony Davis to their G League affiliate, the Texas Legends, to help him prepare for his return. So, Tim, what specifically is he doing, and could we see him make a return soon?
Yeah, they sent him down there to practice, to get some 5-on-5 work in. You know, this week he's really testing that. He is steadfast in his determination to want to return this season, maybe as soon as next week, despite the fact that there are people within the Mavericks organization that have tried to talk him out of it, said the risk-reward's not there. There are people who would rather shut him down for the season. AD's not trying to hear all that.
Interesting. Okay, that's something we will continue to monitor. All right, you guys mentioned Detroit. Let's head to New Orleans. Did y'all see JB Bickerstaff's rant this weekend? Unfortunately for the Pelicans, the Pistons, they were ready last night. Unfortunate moment, though, here for the Pelicans early on. This is their first possession of the game. Trey Murphy III, he drives, and then look here, he falls to the floor, grabs his shoulder in pain. He left the game, later revealed to have a torn labrum in his right shoulder, so he's going to miss the remainder of the season. This has just been a rough injury go here for the Pelicans. Cade Cunningham, though, he's worried about other things. The no look at that.
No look, Cade Cunningham, usually the guy that's rewarding runners with that type of passing. That time somebody hooks him up.
This is what you're referring to. Zion looking like the Zion we have expected to see. This is one of our big 3 plays of the night's nominees here. Then under 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Pistons up by 37 here. The Pistons go on to get the win 127-80.